On the 3rd of August, Texas paused new data center connections to its power grid, pending an audit. The number behind it, about 474 gigawatts of requests. Everyone read that as demand. It is a queue, and the grid operator already publishes what happens to a queue. By the end of this video, I'll name the companies with the most to gain from this, and the one number that would prove me completely wrong. Start with what the order actually says. It is a letter from the governor to the utility commission and the grid operator. It directs them to verify and audit every data center advancing through the interconnection process before any more are approved to move forward. It asks for 5 things from each project, and it sets no deadline at all. And it names its own trigger. In the governor's words, quote, "The failure of some data centers to comply with the Puke survey measuring water and power usage makes this necessary." Now hold those two facts together. 28 of 377 companies answered that survey. And the survey was voluntary. State officials had said themselves there was no incentive to reply. The market priced it inside a day, and the read was simple. If the state has stopped approving new connections, a connection you already have is worth more. Bernstein's note put it plainly. The projects already through the process are insulated. That read is not wrong. It is just the first thing anyone would think. So look harder at the thing that was paused. A large load interconnection queue is a waiting list to plug into the grid. You file a request, you take a number, and you wait, often for years. Filing costs almost nothing next to building. And at the moment of filing, nobody has to prove they will build anything at all. Which is why the grid operator's own numbers are the whole story. As of June, about 474 gigawatts of requests. Of those, roughly 205 gigawatts were judged eligible for its first real screening round. About 9 gigawatts have approval to energize. And the load actually observed drawing power today is under 474, down to under 4. And the operator does not dispute the point. When it published its long-term forecast in April, 367 gigawatts by 2032, its own chief executive said, in the same release, that they believe this forecast to be higher than expected future load growth. The last video on this channel argued that the scarce asset in AI is land that already has power. Texas has now confirmed you cannot simply go and get more of it, but that is not the same as confirming the demand. Here is the part almost nobody covered. Texas had already built the filter. In June, the Utility Commission approved a process the grid operator calls Batch Zero, the first formal sorting of who counts as a very large electricity customer. And it does the one thing a queue never does. It asks you to pay. Post financial security. Prove you control the site. Those two requirements turn a free option into a paid one. And a free option is exactly what a queue position had been. Of the requests it looked at, the operator judged around 205 gigawatts eligible. 274 gigawatts, across 315 projects, had no qualifying study at all. So the count was already coming. Not as an estimate, not from a consultancy, from the grid operator, under a process the state had just approved. The first classifications were due to go out on the 7th of August, 2 days from now. They are not going out. On the same day as the directive, the grid operator told the market it would not meet that 7th of August date, and that it would go to the Utility Commission on the 20th of August to ask for an exception. Read that again. The audit did not just pause the queue, it paused the one process that was about to measure it. Then look again at the 5 things the letter asks every project to disclose. Public subsidies and tax incentives, power use and on-site generation, water sources and cooling, community protection measures, and ownership and controlling interests. Ask yourself which of those a grid operator needs in order to run a grid. None of them. Those are not engineering questions. Subsidies, ownership, water, community impact. That is the material of a legislative session, and the Texas legislature convenes in January. So the audit's product is not megawatts. It is not even a new number. The operator's numbers are already public. It is an official one. The composition of that queue stops being a trade press estimate and becomes a state document with the legislature's name on it. Now the honest counter, and it is strong. When the operator ran that first screen, it found around 205 gigawatts eligible, roughly twice what had been projected. The first real look came in bigger, not smaller. Texas also converts queue positions into built projects at a better rate than the largest comparable market. And the likeliest way this whole thesis dies is the most boring one. No deadline was set, nobody has promised to publish anything, and the audit quietly informs a political agenda while no document anyone can check ever appears. So that is the machine. Now the bet, dated, named, and with the thing that would prove me wrong. Here is the call, and it has a date on it because it settles in cash. By the 30th of June 2027, Batch Zero forces large load developers to post financial security and prove site control. I think the capacity that actually posts that collateral comes in materially below the 205 gigawatts judged eligible, and nowhere near 474. Collateral is the one thing in this whole story that cannot be filed for free. So who does that pay? This is one analyst's read, and it is about queue position, not about any of these businesses. Ask one question. Who can grow next year without asking Texas again? Iron is furthest ahead. Sweetwater is 1.4 gigawatts, and it was switched on in May. Riot is close behind. It says Rockdale's 700 megawatts are already approved. TeraWulf is safe for a different reason. Almost none of its build is in Texas at all. But none of that is immunity. The next megawatt any of them adds goes through the same gate. Which brings us to the other side of that gate. Cipher Digital has an option on a 900 megawatt site near San Antonio, and it submitted it as a studied load into Batch Zero, into precisely the process now under review. Core Scientific has near-term expansion that needs further Texas approvals. Be careful what that means. It is a statement about timing on a grid approval. It is not a statement about either business. And behind both sits the larger exposure, which is not a mining company at all. Every utility and developer whose capital plans were built on Q gigawatts. And here is what would prove me wrong. Next June, developers have to post cash, real collateral, on real sites. If the capacity that posts comes in at 205 gigawatts or more, I am wrong, and the queue was real all along. Under that, it was a list of intentions. Watch 3 dates. The 20th of August, when the operator asks the commission to restart. March, for whether any audit document appears at all. And the 30th of June, when somebody has to write a check. That one settles it. So, plainly, the winners are the ones whose power is already switched on, because nothing new is arriving behind them for a while. Everyone else is holding a position in a line, and the state has just delayed the only exercise that was going to ask what those positions are worth, while collecting exactly the kind of information you collect before you write a law. That is on the record. Today, the 5th of August, 2026. First checkpoint, the 20th of August, when the operator asks the commission for its exception. The real one is next June, when somebody has to write a check. We will come back to it either way, including if it goes against us. 474 gigawatts was never a forecast. It was a list of people who had not yet been asked to prove they meant it. And Texas just moved the day they get asked.